Yes.
We are live.
We are indeed live. Yes.
Calling Chris Anderson in a place with wallpaper. I don't know where you are, but I see that it has nice wallpaper there.
Just like the good old days, you could say, calling Chris Anderson in London. I say, yes, I am in London. Just
where are you in London?
I'm at St. Irman's Hotel, which is
you got kicked out. You got kicked out of home.
I got kicked out of home. I couldn't afford this, so I got kicked out of home. No, it's St. Irman's was the headquarters for SIS Section D, which later becomes the SOE. So this is where the SOE gets started. Where Tim Philby is recruited by British intelligence. So it's a big spy hotel.
Oh, so you're on the SOE tour. Fantastic.
Yeah. So when after it goes over, if the happy and history happy hour goes on long enough, I'm going to go down to the bar at the St. Irman's Hotel and hang out with all the spies.
Nice. I hope you don't get recruited from some spy agency.
Trust me, being the fine physical specimen I am, I find that.
Oh, yeah, you're everyone's target, Chris. Everyone in that bar will be targeting you. I'm in Chicago, because you couldn't tell.
Where are you?
I know, I'm very familiar.
You cut off Hans' head there. He's like a half a solo.
Whose head have I cut off?
Hans.
Hans. Oh my God. There you go. I can.
Now you have a whole solo.
Is he more important than me? Probably. So I could cut off my own head. You wouldn't say anything, but Hans' head. Welcome everybody to History Happy Hour. Thanks to Stephen Ambrose Historical Tours for their assistance in bringing you this show. Check out their rich offering of military history tours at stephenambrosetours.com. I got to say, folks, today we plan to be talking about Truman and the bomb, but our guest, Alex, has not turned up. Where Cheryl is busy trying to see if she can reach him. So we're not sure if we had a misunderstanding or what, but stay tuned and we'll bring him to you if we have him. Otherwise, we'll throw it open to your questions. And I know those of you who came thinking you were going to hear from Alex, I know you'll leave probably if we don't have him, but what are we going to do, right?
Well, I'm looking at like the viewer number, like there's a little counter for viewer numbers. So it's going to start going. The Hale and the Hardy. This is your chance to ask Rick everything you were ever wanting to ask.
There you go. And while you're thinking of the tough questions you want to throw at us, I want to mention that whether you're watching live, watching on replay, or listening in your car to the HHH podcast, welcome. And thanks to all our Patreon supporters, especially our top shelf patrons who make it possible for this show to go. So we love all you guys and appreciate your being here. Chris, I should mention to anyone here who was here last week that my hotel did not burn down.
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah, so I was forced to leave my room. They were going door to door. They made us leave, and I waited outside until the fire department came, and then the fire department wanted to lecture the hotel people for a while.
Did they lecture the guests or just the hotel people?
They didn't, but we kept saying, can we go back in? And they kept saying no. And, but eventually they let us back in, of course, once the show was over. I think the firemen were watching the show in their fire truck.
They wanted it to stop.
They wanted to see how long you would go with it. And then once you stopped the show, they let me back in. So that's kind of what I think happened there.
How cold is it in Fishkill, New York on a Sunday night?
In Fishkill, New York on a Sunday night, it was about 48, but I didn't have a jacket, so it wasn't really cold, but I was just a little nippy. Yeah. So Chris, who's out there hoping that Alex Wellerstein will be here and soon perhaps to be disappointed if we can't make connection with him?
Well, Liz Mumford is here, and she thinks I sound like I'm in a well. In the room.
You do, kind of.
I know, but I'm not. So
to get you a smaller microphone that you can take on the road with you, I will work on that.
I've gotten the lecture. Jim Stark is here. Jan from St. Louis. David LaRays from Buffalo. Homer's here. And hello, Homer. Homer's supposed to be here, but he's in Virginia, so I'm glad he's here.
I hope Homer's doing okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And Rick, you need to purchase a fancy microphone, so it's not just me.
I have a fancy microphone.
Oh.
Is it not connected? I'll check on it while the Open's playing.
Rossi says you need one.
Well, I don't know. Anyway, okay. So why don't we play our open and get into our show, and maybe we'll click Cheryl on and get an update on our guest's progress. So that's Cheryl. That's your warning. Chris, give me a cue here.
The bar is open.
The bar is open. So Cheryl Del Pozo, our producer, the woman behind Cheryl. We could interview you, but we're not going to do that. But we heard anything?
No, unfortunately, I don't know where he is.
Okay.
So in Paris somewhere. I called, left a message, and so I'm hoping nothing's wrong.
Yes, we hope that he's doing fine, and if if he wants to join us, he can. But otherwise, we'll talk about something else. Cheryl, thank you so much, and
thank you. Bye.
Farewell. Farewell.
Bye. Bye.
So, Chris, tell me about the SOE. Like, what was the SOE, and why is it worthy of a tour?
It stands for Special Operations Executive. It's formed in July 1940 by Winston Churchill, and it is an organization set up to basically carry out covert military actions against the Germans in occupied territory and organized resistance movements all throughout Europe. And very famously, Churchill tasks Hugh Dalton, who's going to command the organization, to set Europe ablaze. So they're going to set out to try to do that. And the really fascinating thing about the organization is lots of incredibly brave young people, but right from the very beginning, SOE is both men and women. So a lot of the agents that SOE sends into France are young women, which is sort of unique for the time, and so they have a great story. And so it's fascinating, and I think worthy of a tour.
Yeah, and it's one of those stories that most of the records, or a great number of records, have been declassified, but there are still classified SOE records, aren't there?
Yeah, well, there's a lot. Well, there's two issues with the SOE. One, all the people who are part of Special Operations Executive have to sign the Official Secrets Act. So that means that they can't really talk amongst themselves after the war. Writing books is sort of tricky. So there's a limit to the amount of information. And the other problem is, for a variety of reasons, and we haven't really gotten to the bottom of it, right at the end of the war, the organization gets taken over by MI6. And there's a fire at one of their buildings in London where mysteriously 80% of their files get burned and destroyed. So there's a lot we know, but there's an awful lot that we don't know. So
there was a story, an SOE story that I did a little bit of research into. There was a man named, a U.S. Army officer named Wentworth Eldridge, who later became a professor at Dartmouth, although I didn't know him. And he was married to a British woman, and her father was a bigwig. I'm sorry, his name is escaping me right now, but he was a bigwig in not in the SOE, but in British intelligence. He was an author, Watley, maybe. And anyway, she goes to work for SOE and supposedly as a secretary, but then later in life, she ends up telling her husband that she had parachuted into Belgium and had done stuff in Belgium. But the records for her that are held by the British government, I ordered them. I have them on my computer. They just show her being a secretary. So then the question is, are those, do we believe those records? Do we think she made this story up, or is it possibly a true story? And I talked to a few different people who tended to believe that she probably was just a secretary who made this up, but said, can't be sure.
Well, I mean, at its height, SOE is about 13,000 people in a variety of capacities. But of those, probably only about 5,000 are agents. Then the rest are secretaries. They're conducting interviews. They're doing other things. So, she could have been a bunch of different things. But yeah, I mean, but just the fact that they're viewed right from the get-go, women are viewed right from the get-go as an equal part of the organization.
So I wanted to say to everybody that we have our guest there's been some sort of miscommunication. Our guest, Alex Wellerstein, is not here. I'm hesitant to dive into talking about this topic because we do hope to have him on at some point. And so I would ask you guys to let us know any questions that you have that you would like to put to us, because it's one of those free form hours. This is us tap dancing. We do know that Chris's mic is a bit hard to hear, but that's just something that he's dealing with, and we all have to deal with. So we'll kind of deal with that. And while we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions, or if they just don't feel like asking us a question, do you have any questions, Chris? Did you want to ask me a question? I'll put you on the spot.
On the fly here. So you've been working on some American War of Independence things. Have you found anything new, or are you working on anything that I don't know about yet? I know you talked about something down in Florida, and you had a conference that you were at.
Yeah, so I was just at a Revolutionary War conference in West Point.
War of Independence Conference.
War of Independence Conference. I think all of the speakers were Americans, so that probably does not do well for your point of view. It was interesting. I mean, one of the things that was interesting was that the degree to which it was argued by several speakers that the Hudson River Valley is the seat of the war, even though there's hardly any battles fought there. I mean, right, you have the Battle of Saratoga up in the north of there, and you have the Battle of Stony Point south of there, but that this is a huge grain region. It is also, if you control the river, you can cut off the colonies in New England from the rest of the colonies. And the fact is that Washington, as commander-in-chief, spends about a third of his war in the Hudson River Valley. And so people were making the point that it is important to the colonials. And the British make some half-hearted attempts at it, really never quite pull that off. But that it might have been quite dangerous for the cause of the Patriots in the Revolution had the British succeeded in either through the efforts of John Burgoyne, who came down from Quebec, or in terms of driving north. If Clinton had driven north from New York, this could have caused a lot of problems if they had taken control of the Hudson River Valley. So that was kind of interesting. And there was a terrific speaker, Patrick O'Donnell, who's written a book called, what's it called? It's sitting right here. Washington's Immortals. He set out to do a unit history of the 1st Maryland. And the 1st Maryland, and these are the guys that in 1776, in August of 1776 in Brooklyn, that Lord Sterling, and who's an American general, and Mordecai Gist, who's the second in command of this unit, lead about 400 of these guys in a suicidal attack on the British to allow the rest of the army under Sterling to escape the British and the Hessian soldiers in Brooklyn. And it's a very interesting book, and it's an interesting story. And the story of these people, and most of them were killed or captured and then died on prison ships. And this battle is very important. And I have been 20 times. I've stood on the street in front of the Old Stone House in Brooklyn, which is a rebuild of the house that stood there at the time of this battle that people talk about in their reports, and to to realize with this huge city growing up all around you that this very important and yet underreported moment in the revolution happens right on that spot. That was a pretty moving thing.
Yeah.
So,
and do you believe the Hudson River Valley was the most important?
I think it was not. I don't think it was the most important, but I think it was important. I mean, I think I suppose wherever your army is important to the other army, and wherever you can get your grain and supplies from is something that is important. But I thought that the speakers were probably overemphasizing it a little bit because they were local people. So, fair enough. You talk about your own area because that's the area you like. So what other questions do we have out there, Chris? Did you see anything?
Hannah wanted to know how separate were SOE and SAS. So I'm assuming SAS, you mean Special Air Service. They're two separate organizations, and one of the things about SAS is it was much more closely part of the military chain of command, whereas SOE was a little bit set apart. However, I would say that Colin Gubbins, who goes on to sort of be the head of SOE, he writes a lot of the training manuals for the Special Forces, and before he gets involved with them, he's part of Secret Intelligence Service Section D, and while he's there, he writes manuals for guerrilla warfare and basically special ops, and then he will form some auxiliary units that are deployed to Norway to start the war, and then he will also train units of volunteers to be stay-behind soldiers that are going to basically, when the Germans invade, they're going to stay behind us and carry out guerrilla warfare. So a lot of those ideas of special ops come from Gubbins, and some people say that the origin of the British Commandos comes from him. So they're separate, but it's sort of that special forces story. So in that regard, it's sort of connected.
So we have a guest, Philip Bogner, who says, talk about Truman's reputational legacy over time, please. So, Harry Truman was pretty unpopular when he left office. He had this burst of popularity. He won the 1948 election, really surprised the heck out of everybody, winning that election against Thomas Dewey. The war in Korea comes. He fires General MacArthur. Other stuff's going on, and he is kind of sinking downhill. But I think that he's also one of those people that almost, kind of like Jimmy Carter, almost from the moment that he stops being president, his popularity rises. And I think that what was the book that was written from his quotes? He's speaking. Truman Speaks. Somebody tell us the title of this book, where they was interviewed as an older person. That I think started to also help turn him around. But I think it's David McCullough's biography. David McCullough, tremendous writer, tremendous historian, but he loved Truman. He really came to love him, and that biography probably really turns around Truman's reputation as much as anything. That's kind of my start on that. What would you like to add to that?
Well, I would just say that I think Truman is another one of those presidents that's doing much better years past his presidency, and I think he's looked in a much more favorable light now than he was then, and they're seeing I don't know, kind of him as not merely the guy that comes after Roosevelt, but a president in his own right, and kind of handling those first few bits of the Cold War really well, and kind of setting up, America's position in the world pretty well. So I think his reputation is improving.
Yeah, so basically, neither of us is an expert on Harry Truman, but he's I've always kind of liked him, and he always seemed like a pretty common sense guy. And one of the things that's interesting, and we'll talk about this when we get Alex back here someday, in this book, is that Truman presides over the U.S. government when they drop the 2 bombs on Japan. Although how involved he was in that decision making is something we can talk about with the author. But he then spends the next 5 years keeping the atomic bomb out of the hands of the military. And I just found this fascinating that Truman just really wasn't interested in giving the military possession of these bombs. So that, in fact, if we had decided in 1949 that we were going to drop a bomb on somebody, the Air Force would have had to knock on the door of the Atomic Energy Commission and say, "Hey guys, could you give us a bomb that we can use here?" And that was something that, if I'd known that, I'd kind of forgotten it, and I didn't realize the details of it. And I thought that was really interesting, and suggested that Truman might have been pretty strongly impacted by when he kind of realized the impact that the bombs had in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and that he then was like really keen on trying to make sure that they weren't dropped again, and really, somebody else being president could have led us in a very different direction.
Well, I think, think about how unique it is that you've created the most powerful weapon ever, and it's not given to the military. That's a pretty remarkable thing when you think about it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about it hopefully when we get Alex back, but other presidents don't do it the same way, and that changes. But that's a pretty unique thing.
Yeah, no, that was quite striking, and an interesting part of that story. We have so somebody asked us, and Chris, I'll deal with this, and then you can find the next question to ask here. But somebody asked if I had anything to say about the Ghost Army. Did I know anything about the Ghost Army?
Did you plant that?
I did not. Does Rick know anything about the Ghost Army? So no is the answer, and now we'll go on to the next. No,
John Gahn wrote the book on the Ghost Army.
Oh yes, your friend, my friend John Gahn. Well, so I mentioned to you 2 things. So I mentioned to you that I was interviewed for a Discovery Channel episode of I think it's called the Expedition Files or Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates. It aired this Wednesday. I was talking about the Ghost Army, and they made it sound like I discovered this unit like nobody else had discovered it before. And, I sat there when I did this interview and I listed the books that had been written before my documentary came out. John Gahn's book, Ghosts of the ETO, Phil Gerard's book, Secret Soldiers, Jack Neese's book, The Ghost Army. I mean, I listed them all, and they just ignored all that. And I have to say that
so now these authors are going to stalk you, hunt you down, and
well, no, Phil, I think Phil Gerard and Jack Neese are both dead, and John, John Gahn is not going to come out of Framingham to come get me in Chicago. So, but so as much as I appreciate, I really do appreciate all the people are grateful that you've brought this story out, but I didn't discover it. Other people found out about this before I did, and I always want to give them credit. And I'll give credit to Catherine Hurst, my sister, who handles our bio project, because she's always digging up information on people, on soldiers. And there was a really fascinating one, a guy named William Beale, I think was his name. And he was in the Ghost Army, and he goes back to New York, and by November of 1945, he's acting in a play on Broadway. And he's in this play, which I can't remember the name of. And if Catherine's here, she can type in the name of it. And if she's not here, we'll catch her that she's not here. But he's in this play. It's open. It's open for 23 nights, and it closes. It's a military drama set in Italy. He's playing a soldier, and so it doesn't do very well. But one of the other actors in that play an agent in the audience notes him because it's William Beale's first time on Broadway. It's his Broadway premiere, and it's the Broadway premiere for this other actor as well. And an agent in the audience notices the other actor and sends him to Hollywood, and his name was Burt Lancaster. And I just thought, okay, I mean, it has nothing to do with deception, has little to do with the World War II mission, doesn't even really have a whole lot to do with William Beale since he didn't go to Hollywood. But it just is one of those crazy little things that we keep discovering that I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my Ghost Army.
All right. So Akamata, okay, yes. Akamat 99 asks, did the OSS and SOE ever work together on an operation? So they worked together quite a bit, and there's a very clear connection between SOE and the creation of OSS. So a lot of the training is a copy of SOE training. SOE will set up a camp in Canada to train agents, and two of the most famous trainers of the SOE, guys named Fairborn and Sykes, had been in the Singapore Police Department, and they are going to devise or develop sort of the unarmed combat aspect, and that they're all training OSS agents. Donovan, who starts OSS, comes to England, meets with the people from SOE, and says, hey, we'd like to do something similar, so he's learning from them. So all of that kind of initial creation of OSS really leans heavily on SOE, and you could argue that SOE is sort of responsible for what's going to eventually become CIA. But all that aside, that's the training aspect. But as far as joint operations, yes, very much so. There's a thing called Jedburgh.
I'm sorry, called what?
Jedburgh.
The Jedburghs. The Jedburghs.
So the Jedburghs are teams of agents that are dropped behind enemy lines before the Normandy invasion. There are 92 Jedburgh teams, and each team consists of a British soldier, U.S., and one French soldier. And generally speaking, I'm sure there were some exceptions. The American soldiers OSS trained, and the British and French are either directly from SOE or go through SOE training school. So that was them very much working together on a joint operation, and they had a pretty big impact during Normandy. So yes, there is a lot of cross-pollination.
So we have more questions about Truman. Wally Morrison, who says he's going to be drunk soon if we keep saying Ghost Army. There again, drink again, Wally.
Low alcohol beer, Wally. Low alcohol beer.
How was Truman's firing of MacArthur viewed by the public? Did the public get the whole story and understand or not? I think the answer to that is that the public did understand, but it took a while. They held congressional hearings after MacArthur came back. MacArthur spoke to a joint session of Congress. People were basically comparing him with God at that point. He was being wildly praised. And then you had a long series of hearings at which other people testified. And MacArthur's reputation, MacArthur took off on a big tour of the country, and sort of the more he talked to Americans, the more Americans began to go, this guy's way over the top. And, he thought he was going to run for president in 1948. And he was literally sitting in a hotel room, sort of waiting for the call, thinking that they weren't going to be able to, or 1952, I said 1948, but I mean 1952, and that they weren't going to be able to settle on a choice, and they were going to pick him. And of course, the call never came. And he was pretty much, he had put it all out there. People weren't buying it, and he was pretty much cast to the wayside by the American public. And I think, the interesting thing about MacArthur is that you still get such wildly divergent views today, even from historians. He was great. He was terrible. People are saying, oh, well, he led the great Incheon landings in Korea. Oh, but he also lost Korea. The Chinese came and he wouldn't listen and he was driven back. So you can kind of pick what parts of MacArthur's career you want to focus on and make him out to be a hero or a goat. And I think that, I don't know, Chris, in my opinion, the verdict of history is sort of still on MacArthur. Where would you be?
I think that at the time, there was shock, certainly. I think that a lot of your opinion of the firing would depend sort of on your political leanings. Because obviously, MacArthur was so deeply entrenched in the Republican Party, or kind of that's where he wanted to come from. But there's certainly was shock. But I would say now the verdict of history is more people look at that. MacArthur doesn't come out looking as good. Now there's certainly still people that say, well, he was good, but I think now they're starting to maybe get him a little more critical.
I think both MacArthur and Patton, I know your view on Patton, have declined in the number of people who kind of view them as heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, even in Kevin Hemel's multi-volume biography of Patton, there are times that Patton comes off as a completely doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. So, I mean, I think history has caught up with them a little bit, but I still think with MacArthur, it feels a little bit to me more like the argument is still going.
Yeah, I think people will always, kind of hash this thing out, but I start to see more and more books that I respect. John McManus's books come up. MacArthur doesn't come off looking.
So I want to remind you guys all that you're watching History Happy Hour. We had some sort of scheduling misunderstanding with our guest today, and so we are desperately dancing here, trying to give you something good to watch. Nancy Nallon says to us, speaking of generals who ran for president, how badly did Eisenhower not want to run for president? And my snarky answer would be not badly enough. But
yeah, I would say that he was ready to run. I think he was happy with his decision.
I agree. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that I think George Washington didn't want to run for president. And I think George Washington really didn't want to run for president the second time. But I think Eisenhower did want to run for president. And why not? Why not? He has by 1952, right, when he runs for president. So he's run the war in Europe. He's run. He was at one point the chief of staff of the U.S. Army. He's run the U.S. Army. He's run NATO.
He's had his own paper route. What else?
I mean, let's go. I've done all this. I can be president too. And he did. And he did a good job. Although my father could never stand Eisenhower as president. It's one of the areas that we ended up disagreeing on. But yeah, I think he did want to run completely. So Chris, what else can we answer here?
Well, we have, thanks, Tony. Did Mimi want Dwight to run? I think probably not. So that was the question. Did Mimi want Dwight to run? I think
I don't know.
No, but yeah.
She didn't tell me.
Well, she should have.
Yeah. Okay. So
Washington. Here we go. This is one for you. Washington needed the money, so he had to run for president.
Well, I'm not sure I buy that.
I mean, do entirely.
Do you?
No.
Okay. I think that Washington came back from the war, in which very famously he said, "Oh, you don't have to pay me, but I'll submit my expenses." And then he kept every dime that he spent on every glass of wine, every dinner out, everything he did. He's presented a pretty massive bill to Congress, and it's a huge amount of paperwork. But he wanted to go back to Mount Vernon, and I think he wanted to rebuild his farm. You know, he'd been away I think he'd spent only a couple of nights there over the previous 7 years, and so he wants to rebuild, but he's got such diverse voices as Hamilton and Madison and Jefferson all saying, well, you have to be involved in the Constitutional Convention because nobody will buy into it if you're not involved. And so then he goes to the Constitutional Convention. They immediately make him the chairman of the Constitutional Convention. And then once there's a constitution, they say, well, Mr. Washington, if we're going to make this work, we need the very best possible person to be president, and that's you. And I think he felt at that point like, okay, I'll get it started. And then I was just reading about this today that he really wants to quit after the first 4 years as president because he's concerned that the longer he's president, the more his own personal reputation is going to suffer. And again, he wants to get back to being a private man. And again, Hamilton and Jefferson, who disagree on everything, but they agree on this, that Washington must stay on as president. So he does stay on as president, and his reputation does take a hit because the country's dividing into political parties, and Washington's trying to be neutral, but he's sort of more of a federalist. And so the Jeffersonians are attacking him, and he ends up being pretty unhappy that he stayed for that second term. And he's another guy, though, who left the White House probably, you know, with a lot of criticism. He didn't leave the White House because the White House didn't exist yet, but he left the presidency going through a lot of criticism. But his reputation, too, from the moment he left the presidency, started rising, and his has, I think, never taken a dip.
Some people.
What?
I said, you said his reputation kept rising, and I'm like, well, some people.
Yeah.
No,
So
it was kind of interesting. So I've been doing some work here in England with this organization called the Guild of Battlefield Guides, and you know they're trying to improve the level of guiding over here in Normandy, whatnot. And you go through a training process, and as part of that, they walk you around London, and you know, you have to talk about whatever, usually some of the statues. So they'd asked me to, because I was the only American, why don't you talk at the statue of Washington in front of the National Gallery? So I did a little bit of poking around on that. And in the course of doing that.
And it's got you re-excited about the American cause and their glorious revolution.
No.
Not the glorious revolution, but our glorious revolution.
Again, no.
No. Okay.
But interestingly, two things. When he died, the Royal Navy, all the ships in the Royal Navy, lowered their flags to half-mast as a sign of respect. And George III commented when he left after the second term, he said his act of walking away from power made him the greatest man of the age.
I think that is one of the most moving sort of epilogues of the revolution is that you know, George III's both his dealings with John Adams when he's ambassador to the UK and his words about Washington. You know, it must have taken a lot for him to say those things. And
as you know, George III is a monarch that I greatly admire.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. It's a great book by Andrew Roberts about him.
If you go into our archive, you could find out more. You
could watch that show, and Andrew Roberts talking about George III is quite a tour de force. I was going to say about Washington. So Washington is the hero. The tour I'm doing in October is called The Campaigns of George Washington. So I don't think I'm giving anything away to potential people on that tour, that Washington is kind of the key man of the tour. But when you go through this tour, you go to place after place where Washington is defeated. His troops run away. He's betrayed by one of his generals. He's defeated some more. He is often personally having to deal with some of these things. I mean, he's literally in the field in New York when the British land, and he's trying to rally the militia, and there's like they have 1,000 militia, and 60 Hessians show up and start firing, and 1,000 militia turn and run. And Washington, throws his hat on the ground and says, basically, how can I win the war with men like this? And he's almost in a trance. He's got he might have been captured by the enemy, but other officers lead him away. But he goes through. He's beaten. And then you sit there and and I think the first time you really see this is in December of 1776. And he has, he started 3 or 4 months before. He had an army of 20,000. Now he's got like 2,500, and they don't have shoes, and they don't have much food, and they're in terrible shape. And he's still looking. He's still looking for a way to attack the British or the Hessians, to try to win a victory, to try to move things forward. And somebody else might have given up, but he doesn't give up. He does that, but this keeps happening to him. I mean, it happens to him, when Howe is trying to invade Philadelphia, and Washington beats him or tries to beat him, but doesn't quite beat him at the Battle of Brandywine. And it happens again when the British are leaving Philadelphia. But he holds on. I mean, this to me is one of the most admirable things about Washington, is he holds on.
For the sake of a conversation point, people often look at that and they say that reflects his character, right?
Yeah.
But how much of that is he's committed treason, and if this revolution doesn't turn out the right way, there's not, the British aren't going to say, well, don't worry, you just take this, These guys have kind of said, okay, this is what we're doing, and there's a line in the sand, so giving up.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think that's got to be, in for a penny, in for a pound. But I think he probably, Benedict Arnold talked his way over to the other side. I'm going to guess that George Washington could have if he wanted to, but that was not, what he was about. And I do think it's something to admire. And, you can say, and it's true, I mean, all he really had to do was preserve his army. The British have to defeat him, but he doesn't have to defeat them. He just has to preserve his army. But he becomes perilously close to losing it, but he never loses hope and loses sight. And he's also dealing with Congress, which is being very intransigent and difficult the whole time. He doesn't have money to pay his troops much of the time. The weather is against him some of the time. I just think that as you go through this trip, you really start to see the character of George Washington. So I will say that. I don't even know where we are with questions here. Is it a myth or not that Churchill came up with the idea for the Mulberry Harbors?
It's a myth.
Oh, tell us more.
Well, I mean, the Mulberry Harbors, that comes out of meetings with, my hero, Freddie Morgan. And there are members of the naval part of his staff that they know that there have been similar, on much smaller scale, versions of temporary harbors that have been used commercially. So they proposed this as Morgan is looking for places to try to land troops. So I would not say that it is Churchill's idea. However, what I would say is it's a pretty big ask to turn to Britain in wartime with all the other things they have to do to say, oh yeah, now we have to divert resources to Mulberry. But Churchill gets behind it. So I think where you have to give him credit is sort of
sending out his action this day notes.
Yeah, grabbing that idea and running with it. So I think that's probably. It's
got to be tough for you when it's a choice between Churchill or Freddie Morgan, because now you got a hero on either side.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one. It is kind of a tough one.
We're ping.
Point goes to Freddie this time.
we're ping-ponging around here, and somebody said, "What is Arnold's legacy if he hadn't defected?" I mean, God, if he hadn't defected, he might have been president. He was one of our best generals, and he defects. His treason is really late, right? It's in 1780, and the final campaign has begun. And honestly, you would think, I look at this sometimes, I would think anybody kind of looking at the big picture and saying, okay, well, who's going to win and what do I want to do, might have gone, it's bad time because maybe the British are not going to win. Maybe they're just kind of farting around, and their public attitudes in Britain are against this. People in Parliament are against this. What's Cornwallis doing down in the South? He's starting to have some trouble. I think King's Mountain had happened already at the time that Arnold defected, and so I've maybe not, maybe that hadn't happened yet. But I do think that if he had just held on for a few weeks, a couple of months, and he might have then seen where things were going and sort of disconnected himself from the British, and he might have certainly gone on to be a huge figure in post-colonial America.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was certainly the most competent military commander the Americans had. So yeah, I think he would have had a much. And I should also say that even when he switched sides, he was not very highly regarded here in the UK. He was viewed as somebody as a turncoat. So you can understand back to.
It didn't work out well.
Yeah, so he doesn't. He struck both feet. I guess he was.
But he did really well at Saratoga and Valcour Island.
Well, we have a different opinion on that, I guess.
Well, okay, yes. If you think that the British should have won the Battle of Saratoga, yes, then okay, I can see it's an awkward thing. Is George III actually the hero in the play Hamilton? You haven't seen Hamilton, have you?
No, I haven't.
It's only been playing in London for like 10 years.
Okay, Rick, my opinion of this whole period of history, so why would I spend £85 on a ticket to go to a play about Hamilton?
I've seen it 3 times.
Oh yeah, well, forget enough.
One for each George. No, George III. So George III is on stage for 10 minutes, I think, in the play Hamilton, and he absolutely steals the show.
Yeah, well, because
so maybe you should see it for that, because he is, like, in some ways the hero. So that's how we would talk you into going to see it.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's going to work.
Well, if you pay for half the tickets, then I'll
let's see. What do you do it on May 8th? We could go and see Hamilton, and then we'd have something to talk about. History happy hour a few days later.
If you come early, we'll do a walking tour of Windsor, and I'll show you all the sites in Windsor associated with George III.
Okay, that's a deal. I'm going to be there at if I'm on time, I should be there at 11 o'clock the day before the tour starts. So there's no reason I can't be in Windsor by the early afternoon and have a Guinness for lunch, maybe some food as well. And,
it's like, as we're talking about George III too, our numbers are just like,
yes, they're going down. So we should probably wrap it up. And we have Jim Stark has that's like your second or third time. Chris gets the message on the microphone, and it's we'll improve.
I promise you, when this tour is over, I'm going to try to find a portable microphone.
I will see if I can find one for you, and then we can test it out when of course we'll be together. We could use this microphone for both of us. I don't know. We'll see how that works.
We'll be in France, so we just go to separate rooms, so the Wi-Fi will be really shitty.
We'll be in France, so no one will understand anything we're saying anyway. Yeah. So, Philip Wagner says, how about the lasting power of the play musical 1776 versus Hamilton? Yeah, Hamilton all the way. 1776. I showed that on the bus in a tour that I did recently, and it was so old and slow and dated, and nobody could stand it. What?
I love 1776.
Well, but the Americans win.
Well,
Anyway.
it doesn't matter what play or book, they all, yeah, sorry.
Anyway, so there's another thing we disagree on. Guys, so sorry that we couldn't have Alex Wellerstein on today, and we will try to get him back. We don't have too many free days in the next couple of months, but we'll see if we can't put him into one of them. So that's the story there. Next week, we were going to have a live episode, but we are cursed this month. So we had another scheduling snafu happened that was nobody's fault. So we're going to have an encore episode next week. It's
a really good one.
Right, which is The Nazi Mind with Lawrence Rees. I think we had him on back in September. Terrific show, 12 Warnings from History. So I think that sort of tries to connect a little bit of the past and present in a non-political sort of way. And then in 2 weeks is our 300th episode. And we'll be doing The Crown's Silence. But Chris, I think, and maybe we can hear from our viewers what they think, if those who are still left. I think that we should celebrate our 300th show when we do our 301st show, because we will be together.
Right, and also we'll have actually completed the 300 shows. So
we will have completed 300 shows if we're still talking. And there's a good chance, having gotten to 298, that we'll still be talking after 300. We will, and I don't remember what our interview, who we're interviewing that week, but we will be together. And so we can do a little celebration then.
Have to get somebody at the hotel in France to make us a cake or something.
Yeah. Why? I don't want to get a bunch of people making us cakes and sending them to us. We don't need that. But we are going to be. We'll be in England, I think, still at that point.
Oh, okay.
So maybe we should get some. What were the cakes? The
lardy cakes.
Lardy cakes, right? Lardy cakes, and we can have them. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank
Please,
you for your patience, everybody.
Yes. The 64 of you who are left, 63, 62. No, please subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, shout at us on Blue Sky, complain about our lack of guests, listen to our podcast, back us on Patreon, and browse historyhappyhour.com.